person out, help that person out. It's that simple. If you have an opportunity where you can be impacting someone's life, whether you give them $1 or whether you give them a can of food, help that person out, because it starts with kind deeds. That's where it all starts at. Our country got so far off track as far as people out for their own agenda and not caring for the neighbor, not caring for those within the community, and that's where the problems that exist in our city stem from. And it's going to get better by caring for your neighbor, looking out for those within the community. Today, after I close this meeting here in a little while, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you want to speak directly to myself or anyone of our captains or anybody in here, let me know. Let me know if you got a specific problem within your community that you want to see addressed, or what we can do to perhaps help you out in any way. Also, we have some volunteer request forms. If you would like to volunteer to help us as we get started working inside of our first community next year, just come and see me. I'll shoot that volunteer information down to you. Got a little form you can fill out. But it's all about a whole neighborhood concept in our city, getting everybody to know one another. And I think that we will be on the road to bigger and better things in the city. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns that they want to bring up or they want to address?
I just have another comment. Another thing, Dayton is noted for, and I come from Wisconsin, and I even heard about the Dayton Valley. We have a rich arts community, rich resources here that I think need to be emphasized. There's an old song, I think from World War II era, called Bread and Roses. We need bread, we need roses. And I think our art community here, gardening, organizations, these kinds of things too. They're not just for the people, the elite. They need to get to everybody. Kids need to see a ballet performance, or a concert, and every kid. Every neighbor needs to be beautiful. Neighborhood. I live in Oakland, so it's beautiful, and people have an attitude of beauty. I drive through the Student Street area to get to work, and it's not beautiful. But couldn't it be? Couldn't it? These houses are in decay. I see one from this was torn down, which didn't look good. Couldn't we put something beautiful there? A community garden. They've done Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. There was a program on PBS in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. I sent you an email where they have quite a gardening, little pocket gardens in communities. That's another thought.
It's another suggestion. It's another thought. It's another idea. And see, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those ideas. We're looking for those suggestions. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of on that line, I saw an interview with someone this summer who was doing something like this, and she said, in many neighborhoods, it's easier to find a gun than a tomato. And I was thinking, even food drives are great, but the kinds of foods that people donate to food drives aren't healthy. They're canned, processed, non-perishables by necessity. And we grow a garden, and we're also a member of the CSA, so we find ourselves with more produce than we know what to do with. And we were talking about it over breakfast this morning, that if everybody had some produce, couldn't we hand that out to families? I mean, there's kids that have never tasted a green pepper. They don't even know what that is, and they're in our community, and instead of donating SpaghettiOs, which are, it's necessary, they need the energy, but couldn't we donate some stuff that they wouldn't otherwise get a hold of, something that's healthy, something that would combat the epic problems like childhood diabetes and they can't get exercise because the neighborhoods aren't safe, so at the very least we can give them excellent nutrition and food, access to that food by having something like that, a community garden, or by everybody who has a garden just, we complain that we have too many cucumbers, and it's a shame. Nobody should have too much food when there's people who don't have it.
That's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought it up. Because, see, it's ideas like that, suggestions like that can be implemented, that can be done for relatively low cost. And that's why it's important for everyone to voice their opinion and to get their ideas out there so that we can come together and be like, you know what, let's do this. I like it. I do. That's a great idea. I was primarily raised on a farm, Okay, so I know the benefits of having fresh produce. It's a heck of a lot better than anything we get in the can in the store. I'll agree 100%, and I'm glad you brought it up, and I will look further into that. And please get on there, send me your detailed idea down, your detailed suggestion, and that'd be great. I'll let you know what I can find out about it. See maybe if it's being done in another community somewhere.
I garden too, and I know all about like having the extra produce and stuff. The homeless thing's a good idea. Another good thing you might think about is if you could develop some kind of a network, get some kind of organization where the people that do garden know each other, or have a list of contact. You could like swap produce, maybe even like have a thing where you could have like a collective where you could set up a booth somewhere and sell stuff in Second Street Market or someplace, and then use the money for things in the community or whatever you wanted. That's
the problem with it. Yeah, I mean, the only problem that exists is making sure everybody knows what's available and what's out there, because there's a lot of people. Where do I go? Where do I go for help? What do I do? Where do I go? And that's what we're going to try to do. Point them in the right direction. Point them, hey, here's this for you. Here's that for you, so they can utilize that. But I do think I love the idea with the gardens inside the communities, because I'm sure there are onesies and twosies of those being done around here. But imagine if you had that city life in each community. Imagine if you had that in each community. You would combat. I'm not saying you'd end hunger, but you would combat a huge portion of that, and you would bring in some benefit to our homeless residents.
She, like I said, she's got extra cucumbers, I got extra tomatoes, somebody else got extra lettuce, extra bell peppers.
You put that together, you got to nail that. You put everything together, and you were on the path to helping out more folks. And see, that's something that we can utilize come next year too. We do our coordinated food drives. We research the idea. That's why right now I'm looking at I'm going to go ahead and prep for our next drive, and it's going to be put 5 months out in advance. For 4 or 5 months, we're going to utilize radio. We're going to utilize whatever we got to do. We're going to put it out when we get inside of our communities and start talking to folks. Some of these suggestions, some of these ideas, and get more people involved with it, because that's what it's going to take. Letting people know that, hey, we want to hear your voice. We want to work with you. This is what we want to see done. This is what you want to see done. Coming together with those creative ideas and suggestions will see improvement. And I think that we're off to a great start today. Due to inclement weather, not everybody is able to come. That's fine. We're off to a great start, and I guarantee you, come next time, as we start working more and more inside of our communities, we'll get higher and higher turnout. We'll get more suggestions, get more ideas, and more thoughts on city improvement. Does anybody else have any? Yes, ma'am.
I have one other thing. I worked for a year at Eastwood as a case manager. If anyone's familiar with the organization that helps the mentally ill. And then now I work at the Social Security Administration on the SSI unit, which is also providing money for disabled people who have very low incomes. So I deal with a population like that a lot. I work with them, and I've become fairly familiar with the services around here. And one thing that comes up a lot is they move a lot. They're not able to pay their bills, or they're evicted for one reason or another. And one problem that we have with that, particularly when I was at Eastway, is there's no service to help them move. So I was thinking what we need is some kind of a community service that would help people move. And what would happen, they would move, and they would have to leave all their stuff in their old apartment, and they would have to start over, and they would have to find new donations, and they never got to really have their own things. Like they move every 6, 9, 12 months, and they leave all of their stuff, and they just go. I was in people's apartments who would go into an apartment and it was empty, and they would be sleeping on the floor with just a blanket and no food in the fridge, and they just didn't have any way to get it until they could finally accumulate donations, and then they would get evicted again, and it was cyclical, and they would just have to leave all their stuff behind again. And I think
people in the storage business have been doing really well. It's still 60 or $100 a month.
It's too
for
expensive.
storage, and then they end up abandoning those too, and their stuff gets sold off there.
And they can't pay to have someone move their things. A lot of them are elderly or disabled. They can't do it themselves. They don't know anyone with a truck. I don't know what we could do. I don't have any idea for the logistics.
Simply involve your residents, your volunteers to help out. Because I tell you what, there's people associated, not just with this group, but all across town that have those resources, that have extra resources that can help. It's just a matter of reaching those people and letting them know, hey, you want to do some good for your community instead of looking out for your own interest. How about you help your community out? How about you get involved with your neighbors, get involved with your residents, find out how you can best help them. You put that caring spirit out there, you get people involved, and you're on the way to a bigger and better city. And that's, like the Reverend talked about the other day, the greater